Blue, this is a cup of hoops, I believe. I'm infiltrating you and Mass's show this week. We have myself, Lyndon, and you, but that's really all I know about this show. So I'll pass to you, man. Take it over and lead us into it.
Well, this is season 2 of A Cup of Hoops, sponsored by Synergy. This is episode 2, number 35 overall, alongside Michael Timmons and Lyndon Cook. As you can see, Ryan Massid at GASO Mass is not here. He's attending to some daddy duties. But we're going to try to make up for him not being here by adding 2 guys, right, Lyndon? It's going to take 2 of y'all to make here. But we're going to get into the things that you need to look for this week. Of course, on Friday, it's the GASO Fast Break. Look for our marquee matchups and our under the radar matchups for this weekend's GASO Fall Tour that takes place September 7th on Saturday at Duncanville Fieldhouse and at Cedar Hill. 108 teams sold out pretty quickly, and more still wanting to get in. So look for that fast break and all of our some commentary of course, by Lyndon. Don't forget about Recruiting Simplified newsletter that comes out every Wednesday. So that will be tomorrow. It takes about 1 minute to read weekly to get some of the best information from Mass on what you should be doing to get your recruitment started. And then once you get it started, to continue to ride the momentum. And as I said, October 7th, our first out of 4 GASO Fall Tours start, with our second one going to be in San Antonio on September 21st. More information coming, along with Next Gen. You want to plug anything, Michael?
Yeah, the next gen signups are coming in hot and heavy. Remember, that's for 2026s, 2027s, 2028s, and 2029. So we have signups from every part of Texas, it seems like. We have people from DFW coming down, Houston's coming over, Austin, Killeen, even the Valley and Corpus. So obviously San Antonio will be well represented and they're hosting. So the pride I can feel out of those guys is like, hey, it's our turn to show what we can do. So I'm excited about that. But yeah, one of those things where it's going to sell out fairly quickly. So follow all our social media channels, GASO Next Gen, to see who's been kind of being added to the list. And it's going to be here sooner than we can imagine. So I'm excited for that.
Yeah, and then, of course, follow us all on X. You can follow Michael at iFilm Hoopers, Lyndon at GASO, Lyndon at GASO Blue for me, and then, of course, at GASO Mass, at GASO Tim. Just head on over to at Texas Hoops GASO, and you can kind of see all of our links kind of being retweeted and everything else as the news comes in. Recruiting Simplified, question of the week. Guys, as we get started here at the GASO Fall Tour to tip off really the kind of the fall schedule, I feel like around even the state of Texas. One thing to keep in mind for the players is to get your highlights ready. I think this is the perfect time to start focusing on the short 1-minute segments of your highlights. An eye-catching play at the beginning that should take about 2 to 3 seconds. Maybe a little bit longer, depending on what the play is. But this isn't where you need to do a bunch of like layup line type introduction. That doesn't do anything for your highlights right now, because you've got to get in there in 60 seconds and capture your audience. Who is the college coach? And then, start your outreach. But here we're going to pass it over to the expert, Michael Timmons, who has been doing this for a very long time, editing film as a director here at GASO. And also he's going to talk to you about what he looks for as he pieces things together for y'all on a highlight and what y'all should be doing.
Yeah, for me, one of the hardest but most fulfilling parts about hiring my videographers is to help them with the eye as well. Because you mentioned, this day and age, it's a lot about mixtapes. And mixtapes are cool until they're not. When it's not cool? When you want to post something to IG and you have no offers or interests. I get it. Like, we want our views and things like that. But when you're talking about a real highlight, which we offer with Tech Soups TV and GASO, you have to get right to the point. Like Blue said, what pops out early. The attention span for college coaches is the same as all of us. We're all human. You have to pull you in very quickly. So for me, giving an example, if we're breaking down a film on a point guard, I want to show those intangibles right away. Can you shoot as a point guard, especially a smaller guard? So I want to show that right away. But then a lot of the attacking. A lot of college coaches are looking for, can you attack, make two guards, you pitch out, make the right play. So a lot of what I'm showcasing, it may not be the most sexy thing, but showing the ability out of the pick and rolls and making right reads and things like that. Even if it's a skip pass over the top to an open corner shooter, a lot of times we'll utilize that even if the shot doesn't go in because of the reads and the playmaking. You want to show the IQ as quick as possible. But like you said, no layup lines. And Mass talks about this a lot. You may have went crazy, and I've done a lot of highlight tapes where it's like, all right, you probably have 2 minutes of film. We're gonna break that down to those 30 to 45 second windows, so you can stay relevant and post things weekly, opposed to one long 2 minute reel. Because the odds of anybody watching over a minute are just, in this day and age, just aren't realistic. And then the other thing is, make sure you know, like especially with us, when I'm making a highlight for somebody, I have Lyndon, I have Blue, I have Mass, I have guys, the evaluators and the eyes you want to see look at it. We're not making the highlights for you to go post on IG for your classmates. You can do that at some point, but remember what platforms you're posting on. And X is huge. So we always talk about, yeah, I get that. It's TikTok, it's Instagram. That's great, but X is where most of the college coaches are, and most of the evaluators, and that's where you're going to generate most of your buzz. So just those type of things, making sure that plays translate, making sure that you can get the right eyes on you and you're posting to the right platforms. I get it. A mixtape's going to be cool with the music and the intros and the transitions, but if you're not getting any recruitment, then let's focus on actual sustainable highlights. So
Yeah, the key there was what's going to translate to a college coach when he watches. So that's a very key there. That's the biggest probably takeaway you can get right now is what translates, what shows you as a player. Don't, and Mass says this all the time. Don't say you're a 3-point shooter and you're only shooting 20% from threes and your highlights are nothing but threes. That does not that's not going to help you in recruitment. And speaking of recruitment here, Lyndon, I know it has been that 8, 9, 10 years ago that you were even recruited, but what have you seen? Because you were thrown into the mix of the GASO staff right away, probably at 18, 19 years old, if I remember correctly,
Yep.
and you always had an eye for talent. What is it that you have seen? A 10-year period of time seems like a lot, but just think what's been happening for the past 20 years before that, where recruiting was a little bit more consistent. What have you seen change since then?
I mean, in short, everything. Because literally, I mean, I go back to when I was playing and being my recruiting process where I was having to individually export clips from Huddle and putting them together in iMovie to get stuff out there. And now you have all the resources where there's a million film guys and Twitter channels and YouTube channels and everything else that you're going to be able to get exposure with. Um, you know, and with that, just how big social media has gotten and the ability to advertise yourself, the resources and the wealth of knowledge out there for people who want to go play college basketball, it's easier than ever with the resources and information out there, and especially the stuff that we give out on a weekly basis with GASO. Recruiting Simplified, the GASO Fast Break newsletter, that helps you kind of see where you stand and how you can make yourself more recruitable to college coaches. And that's something that was just there was nothing before, the last 5-6 years that we've been really kind of leaning into that space.
yeah, and I'm taking it a little bit back earlier than you with my recruiting. Unfortunately, I'm a 5'10" guard that couldn't really shoot it, so I had to work a little bit harder. But yeah, just reaching out, and now it's all about consistency. We talk about social media, use it as a tool, but it still is a social platform. And with that, like, you have to stay consistent to keep your engagement up. You can't just post one time and think like, oh, okay, everybody's going to see it. I mean, it's the same thing when you send emails. Sometimes people just don't see these emails because they're flooded. So you have to come up with an approach that's consistent and to stay relevant, because all three of us know kids right now that tag us in a lot of things and they're consistent. And regardless of what their skill level is, they stay on radars, just because we're like, oh, I've seen this kid continues to post. And it's a lot of it's subconscious. I go back to the fact that we're all human. It's not like media and grassroots basketball have a different level of consciousness than the average human. We're all consuming information. So just being consistent and having a plan and just keeping your name relevant, whether that's, little graphics here and there, a clip, sometimes just one single clip of something like just continues to stay relevant. Your stats throughout the season, just staying relevant is something that's going to help you with media and when media translates over to college coaches viewership.
Hey, I even went back a little bit further in the early 2000s when I was at Stephen F. Austin and at Texas A&M Kingsville. And when I was recruiting at Kingsville, I would get a packet about this thick with about 20 to 30 pieces of paper. Everything you see digitally now, it would be on a piece of paper with a nice little screen, a nice little photo of somebody with the ball in their hand and tucked underneath, and get to know page. And there was no video. You would have to put a VHS in. You would have to request it. And so just kind of going back to what Lyndon was saying, I mean, everything that we have now, it's funny, but it's the truth. Everything that we have now is so the everything you're capable of doing and branding yourself is so much easier now, and to get the word out and make sure that you're a part of the Recruiting Simplified. For every Wednesday, it's a free newsletter, and then get on board and let Recruiting Simplified help you get to that next level. So now let's get into the topics of players. We got big weekend coming up. These are. Oh wait, let's go back. Hot topic. Almost skipped it.
I know. I was like, "Are you
You
gonna
know
skip
what?
this one?"
Hey! I was actually talking to a college coach this morning after getting my oil changed, and I'm driving back, and I didn't know what this topic was going to be today. And then all of a sudden, we just start talking, going back and forth, and then this is it. Does hype hurt a kid, or does it help? I think it works probably both ways. But I can tell you stories from just 2 months ago when we're sitting at TABC, and then you see all of these videos start and names start coming out about players, and this hype machine starts coming. And now you fast forward it 2 months later, those kids that were can't miss, high majors, mid-major pluses, mid-majors, they're kind of in the same. They're waiting for these college coaches to come in now in September. They don't have any offers. They're waiting to kind of see where they fall in line in the pecking order of some of these schools. Did some of the hype with some of these kids, did it kind of push some teams away? Did it help? Did it hurt? That's kind of where we are because of film and everything else, because of technology, I guess.
Lyndon, what do you think?
So for me, the biggest thing, and this is something when I interact with college coaches, a lot of times some of the random texts I will get is like, "Hey, I've been blown up nonstop about this kid. Is he the goods? Does he back it up in person before I go spend the time to go check him out in person or go do a deep dive, see his film, the stats, all that stuff?" You can't sell them the Lamborghini idea, the sports car idea if it doesn't got an engine. It's got to produce, it's got to run whenever it shows up, and it's time for the actual evaluators, the people who make the call on whether to offer you or not, come into the building. And you can have the best highlights, you can have the best hype services, you can have the right people in the media pumping you up and saying that this guy's the next coming and all that stuff. But whenever the rubber hits the road, you have to produce consistently, and you have to be somebody who is not just the, "Hey, look, I can dunk really cool and I hit step back threes," but I got to have something that translates as an evaluator. And if I have to, the college coaches have to as well.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. And going back to the actual topic, does hype hurt or help? I think hype at the beginning helps a lot. But would you just say consistency? At our live periods this past summer, I found myself being loud about specific names and then being shy about telling college coaches about specific names because of the consistency. Now, splash plays are great, and a lot of social media, those splash plays that you see are going to open up doors for a lot of these kids. But then you have to be consistent away from that. You have to be consistent away from that. So me as an evaluator, if I don't trust what your game is, like I can't, if you've dunked between your legs in the game or whatever, or windmill dunk, that's great. But can I expect that when a college coach is like, "I'm going to watch this kid for 5 minutes"? I got to know that you do X, Y, and Z on a consistent basis all the time. And with hype, I mean, the barrier for entry into this media world for grassroots basketball, unfortunately, it's lower than ever. That's just what it is. You can come in here, you can talk about kids. And naturally, a lot of these media guys, especially videographers, want to film who's going to get the most views. Views doesn't naturally always translate to who are the highest recruited players, unfortunately. But we all watch video. We've all been tricked. Kids will look the part on different videos. All of a sudden, the national guys that aren't in the gym that often and see these kids on the same regularity that the local evaluators do, they'll taste the Kool-Aid as well. And all of a sudden you have a can't miss prospect. But then when it's time for offers and things like Blue said, like, where's the consistency? Now, a lot of times with hype, what ends up happening is if you have hype, you're going to get the benefit of the doubt. So you're going to have multiple opportunities. And that, I think you tweeted today, or Mass did, but the leash on production, what was it, Blue? Production.
Potential eventually has to
Exactly.
equal production.
So once you see your name circulating, or once there's this hype, you have a window of opportunity to take advantage of it. But you have to be consistent with those opportunities, because
Definitely.
then you'll be scrambling and being like, well, wait, I thought everybody said I was a can't miss prospect. And then you got to go back to the drawing board. So I definitely think it helps. When there's hype involved, you're doing something right. Just know that now you need to play like that, whatever that hype may be, on a consistent basis that translates into winning basketball.
Yeah, now we're going to transition over into the players. We're going to talk about a couple of players here. Always go back to our fast break at the end of the week on Fridays to get more information on players and on teams. But here we're just going to touch on one, and I'll tip us off here with a player that I'm going to be focused on this coming weekend. And I'm going to say it's David Coe from Dallas Kimball. And the reason being is that Dallas Kimball a year ago needed a point guard. They needed a somebody that was going to be able to play all 32 minutes of that game, and David Coe is probably their answer here. They take a step down to 4A, so they're of course are going to be have a large target on their back, and David Coe is going to have to go out there and prove himself every night. As easy as it may sound, he's going to have to go out there and really produce, be his physical self, be able to get to the rim. I'm not just looking for just the tools that he brings, but also I want to see how he's going to lead this team. What difference is he going to make this weekend? As it's very early, but is he ready for the challenge of stepping up and really being part of that face of that program?
Yeah, and for me, let's stay in DISD with a Marion Hunter for Dallas Carter. We've gotten so familiar with the Carter team that they had last year, because those guys had felt like been there forever with Puryear and Cole Williams and Daniel Thomas. Those guys. I mean, it's time for him to kind of step in and take the reins of this team as a sophomore. He's one of the most electric scorers in the 27 class. He never sees a shot he doesn't like, and he can make them at a very, very high clip. But I'm excited to see what kind of we can expect from him going into the season, and how expanded his role is, how potent he can be leading that offense. Now that it's his team, it's his time to step up.
My bad. When I try to go, obviously Max Preps commercials.
Yeah.
Before I say mine, I don't know how much I like this cup of hoops. I've talked more on these than I have ever have on a GASO cast. So I'm going to keep this one brief. Cameron Paul of DeSoto. All the hype in that district right now for football is like what a gauntlet of a district it is. It's going to be equally just as crazy in basketball. I think there's going to be a lot of those old school storylines and these just crazy matchups this season. And give me Cameron Paul, a senior, already commits to Mississippi State, heads to DeSoto. I think he's going to take that next step when it comes to the leadership and just all the intangibles to be a dude. And in that district, I think he's going to have a really chance to shine. I think that platform for him is going to be unbelievable. And when you're talking about splash plays, I'm still a video guy at the core. There's going to be some fun ones this weekend at our GASO Fall Classic. So give me Cameron Paul as a guy that I'll be focused on, just seeing all those traits and intangibles for the DeSoto team.
Yeah, I'm sure that next week we're on GASO Cast. We're going to have plenty to talk about of what we're going to see this weekend. So a lot of names coming y'all's way. Hopping into must-watch teams. I mean, I'm a team guy. I love the the talking of the rankings and so forth. This is obviously a couple of we're still weeks away from naming our top 10, but our top 25 in each classification. But one team I'm really going to look at that I'm ready to see is Denton Guyer. When you look at their roster of Silas Rodriguez, Jordan Lowry, 6'8", 6'9", Tyler Copes, and then Mason White as another guard. I mean, this team is programmed to be a scoring machine. And I think also defensively, these guys can move their feet, get around laterally, switch, do whatever they need to for head coach Grant Long. And I think that so much can already probably be said about the Duncanvilles and Brennans and Colleen Ellison's, everybody, in their classifications. But Denton Guyer to me seems like a team that is going to be in the background here going, hey guys, you don't have to talk about us, but I want to step up and see them already, because there's a lot of firepower, star power that could come out of this group, and they could wind up being a team that can score a lot of points on any given night.
Yeah, for me, Richardson Lake Highlands, they're only 2 years removed from winning a state championship. And word on the street is that they've reloaded with a strong 28 class. Jamian Broom, Jay Sean Wilkinson. I believe his last name is Johnson, if that rings a bell, at Lake Highlands. So with another 2028 who has the pedigree and all the, we talked about hype a little bit earlier. He's got a little bit of that early to make us go check him out, because from all accounts, this team is going to be one to keep an eye on going into the future with that 2028 core.
Yeah, for me, how about Little Elm? And when you just look at Little Elm's roster, there's a lot of Flash Elite. And from our GASO season, I mean, it's going to be hard for us to bet against a Flash Elite squad that's as physical, tough-minded as they come. Then you get so you're talking about Kensington Candler, Eli Fegans, Ian Barry, and then you get the addition of Darius Johnson, who was one of my favorite guards all year long when you're talking about dogs. You're not going to out-tough this team. You're not going to punk them. You're not going to outwork them at a 9 a.m. or 10 a.m. tournament game in the back gym, if that's where they happen to be. This team will be up for any challenge this year, and those are some of the scariest teams when you have that mentality with guards that can go.
Well, guys, there you have it. Couple of Hoops, Season 2, wrapping up Episode 2. Next week, we'll be back with GASO Cast, but don't forget GASO Fast Break on Friday. A lot of information a day before we hit the courts with our first of 4 stops of the GASO Fall Tour. For all information, hey, go to Texas Hoops GASO on X. Follow us. We'll be sending out a lot of information on Saturday, what we see, what we're hearing, and so forth. So thanks for joining in, and we'll see you next week.